Jesus, in his infinite wisdom, began his teachings with a parable that would be etched in the memory of his followers for generations. This story, known as the parable of the wise builder, was not just a simple tale, but a profound lesson about the importance of building a solid foundation in spiritual life. Imagine the scene. Jesus, surrounded by an attentive crowd, starts to tell a story about two builders. The first, described as a prudent man, decides to build his house on a rock. The second, less cautious, opts to build on sand. At first glance, it may seem like just a choice of terrain, but Jesus was conveying a much deeper message. Everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice, Jesus said, is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. With this statement, Jesus was establishing a fundamental principle. True strength and resilience in life come from hearing and, more importantly, from practicing his teachings. But why is the choice of foundation so crucial? Jesus explains that inevitably the storms of life will come. Rains will fall, rivers will overflow, and winds will blow against both houses. It is at this moment that the difference between having a solid foundation and a fragile one becomes evident. The house built on the rock, representing the life of one who not only hears but practices Jesus' teachings, stands firm in the face of adversity. On the other hand, the house built on sand, symbolizing those who hear but do not put into practice, collapses completely when faced with the same challenges. This parable teaches us that true strength does not come merely from knowledge, but from the practical application of that knowledge in our lives. It is not enough just to hear Jesus' teachings. We must incorporate them into our daily lives, in our decisions and actions. But how can we apply this lesson in our everyday life? First, it is important to dedicate time to know and understand Jesus' teachings. This can be done through regular reading of the Scriptures, participating in Bible studies, or personal reflection on the words of Christ. However, knowledge alone is not enough. The real challenge lies in transforming that knowledge into action. For example, if Jesus teaches about loving our neighbor, we should seek practical ways to demonstrate that love in our community. This can include acts of kindness towards our neighbors, volunteering in charity organizations, or simply being available to listen to and support those who are going through difficulties. Similarly, if Jesus speaks about forgiveness, it is not enough just to agree that forgiveness is important. We must actively seek to forgive those who have offended us, even when it is difficult. This process of putting Jesus' teachings into practice is like building our spiritual house on the rock. It is important to note that Jesus does not promise that there will be no storms in our lives. On the contrary, he guarantees that they will come. The difference lies in how we face those storms. When our lives are built on the firm foundation of Christ's teachings, we have the strength and resilience needed to face any adversity. This solid foundation is not built overnight. Just as building a house requires time, effort, and dedication, developing a strong spiritual life also demands ongoing commitment. It is a daily process of choosing to hear and practice Jesus' teachings. As we incorporate these teachings into our lives, we begin to notice changes. Our reactions to difficulties become more balanced. Our capacity to love and forgive increases. Our inner peace strengthens, even amidst external chaos. These are the signs of a life built on the rock. The parable of the wise builder reminds us that the Christian life is not just about abstract beliefs, but about concrete actions. It is about living in a way that reflects the values and teachings of Jesus in every aspect of our existence. When we do this, we are building a life that can withstand any storm. This parable also warns us of the danger of being merely a passive listener. Many may hear the words of Jesus, agree with them, and even be moved by their beauty and truth. However, if those words do not translate into actions, spiritual life remains fragile, like a house built on sand. After establishing the importance of a solid foundation through the parable of the wise builder, Jesus expanded his teachings in what became known as the Sermon on the Mount. This masterful discourse, considered by many to be the pinnacle of Jesus' teachings, presents a revolutionary vision of life and spirituality, highlighting essential virtues such as humility and meekness. The setting of this sermon is as significant as its content. Jesus ascended a mountain, symbolizing not only a physical elevation, but a spiritual one. There, surrounded by his disciples and a crowd eager for his words, he began to reveal the principles of the kingdom of God. Jesus starts the sermon with the Beatitudes, a series of statements that begin with, "Blessed are the." These affirmations challenge the conventional wisdom of the time, and even of today. For example, he declares, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." This statement goes against the current of common thought, which often associates success and happiness with assertiveness and self-confidence. By exalting humility, Jesus is not promoting low self-esteem or subservience. On the contrary, he is teaching that true strength comes from recognizing our dependence on God and our interconnectedness with others. Humility, in this context, is the foundation for authentic spiritual growth and healthy relationships. Similarly, Jesus proclaims, "Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth." Again, he challenges conventional notions of power and success. Meekness, often misinterpreted as weakness, is presented by Jesus as a quality of controlled strength and deliberate kindness. It is the ability to respond to situations with calmness and consideration, rather than reactivity and aggression. These virtues, humility and meekness, are fundamental to building the resilience that Jesus was teaching. They allow us to navigate life's challenges with grace and balance, keeping us open to learning and growth even in difficult circumstances. But the Sermon on the Mount does not stop there. Jesus continues to challenge his listeners with ever-deepening teachings. He speaks about loving enemies, not judging others, and the importance of forgiveness. Each of these teachings contributes to building a strong and resilient life, capable of withstanding the storms mentioned in the previous parable. One of the highlights of the sermon is when Jesus teaches about the importance of seeking first the kingdom of God. He says, "But seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you." This instruction is revolutionary in its simplicity and depth. By directing us to seek first the kingdom of God, Jesus is inviting us to realign our priorities. He is calling us to look beyond the immediate and material concerns of life and to focus on what truly matters: our relationship with God and with one another. This pursuit of the kingdom is not an escape from everyday responsibilities. On the contrary, it is a way to approach those responsibilities with a renewed perspective. When we seek first the kingdom of God, we begin to see our lives, our work, and our relationships through a new lens. We start to act not only out of self-interest, but with a broader sense of purpose and meaning. Moreover, Jesus promises that when we prioritize the kingdom of God, all these things, referring to the basic necessities of life, will be provided for us. This is not a promise of material wealth, but rather a guarantee that as we align our lives with God's purposes, we will find a provision that goes beyond the merely physical. The practical application of this teaching can drastically transform our approach to life. Instead of worrying excessively about the future or stressing over every little detail, we are invited to trust in God and focus on what is truly important. This shift in perspective is a powerful source of strength and resilience. Imagine how different it would be to face the challenges of daily life with the assurance that by striving to live according to the principles of the kingdom of God, we are building something of eternal value. This confidence does not eliminate difficulties, but gives us the strength to face them with grace and determination. The Sermon on the Mount, therefore, is not merely a set of moral rules. It is an invitation to a transformed life, a life built on the firm foundation of Jesus' teachings. It is a call to be different, to be salt and light in a world that often seems dark and tasteless. As we internalize and live these teachings, we begin to experience a profound change. Our resilience increases, not because circumstances become easier, but because our perspective and inner strength transform. We learn to see challenges not as insurmountable obstacles, but as opportunities for growth and for demonstrating the principles of the kingdom. As Jesus continues his journey of teachings, we come across a crucial moment that vividly illustrates the inner strength and resilience he preached so much about. This episode takes place in the Garden of Gethsemane, a location that would become a symbol of trial and submission to divine will. On the night before his crucifixion, Jesus went to the Garden of Gethsemane with some of his closest disciples. The atmosphere was tense, charged with the imminence of the events about to unfold. It was in this setting that Jesus demonstrated in a palpable way what it means to be truly strong and resilient in the face of extremely adverse circumstances. Upon arriving at the garden, Jesus began to feel the weight of what was to come. The Gospels recount that he was deeply distressed and troubled. Matthew describes that Jesus said to his disciples, "My soul is deeply grieved, to the point of death." This confession reveals an important aspect of resilience. Recognizing and expressing difficult emotions is not a sign of weakness, but of authenticity and courage. Jesus then moved a little further away and began to pray. His prayer in Gethsemane is one of the most intense and revealing moments in the Gospels. He cried out, "My Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me, yet not as I will, but as you will." This prayer perfectly encapsulates the essence of the spiritual resilience that Jesus was teaching. First, we see Jesus honestly expressing his desire to avoid the suffering that was to come. He did not pretend to be immune to pain or fear. This teaches us that being strong does not mean not feeling fear or wishing to avoid difficult situations. True strength lies in facing those feelings honestly. Next, we observe Jesus' submission to the Father's will. Despite his personal desire, he was willing to accept the divine plan, even if it meant facing extreme trial. This attitude demonstrates a deep trust in God's greater purpose, even when that purpose is not easily understood or accepted. The scene in Gethsemane teaches us that prayer is a powerful source of strength and resilience. Jesus did not face his trial alone or relying solely on his own strength. He sought the support and guidance of the Father through intense and focused prayer. This example shows us that in the most difficult moments, we can find renewed strength through our connection with God. It is important to note that Jesus prayed repeatedly in the garden. The Gospels recount that he returned to the disciples and found them sleeping, going back to pray 2 more times. This illustrates the persistence necessary in the search for spiritual strength. Resilience is not something that is achieved once and for all, but a continuous practice of seeking God, especially in times of greatest need. Another remarkable aspect of this episode is how Jesus dealt with the failure of his closest friends. Despite asking the disciples to watch and pray with him, they fell asleep repeatedly. Jesus' response to this disappointment is an example of compassion and understanding. He said, "The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak." This attitude teaches us that true strength includes the ability to be compassionate toward the weaknesses of others, even when we are going through our own struggles. After this intense period of prayer, Jesus emerged from the garden ready to face what was to come. His attitude shifted from anguish to determination. When the soldiers came to arrest him, he faced them with calm and dignity, demonstrating the inner strength he had cultivated through prayer and submission to God's will. Jesus' experience in Gethsemane offers profound lessons on how to cultivate strength and resilience in our own lives. First, emotional honesty. We should not deny or suppress our difficult feelings, but express them honestly before God. Second, submission to divine will. True strength comes from aligning our will with God's, even when it is challenging. Third, the power of prayer. Persistent and focused prayer is a crucial source of spiritual strength. Fourth, compassion. Being strong does not mean being insensitive to the failings of others, but understanding and supporting those around us. Fifth, preparation through trial. Facing our struggles with God prepares us for the challenges to come. The journey of Jesus towards the cross represents the apex of his demonstration of strength and resilience. After the intense trial in the Garden of Gethsemane, Jesus faced a series of brutal events that tested not only his physical endurance, but also his spiritual and emotional strength. The example he left on the cross is a powerful testament to how we can maintain our integrity and purpose even in the most adverse circumstances. When Jesus was taken to be judged, he faced false accusations, mockery, and physical abuse. However, amidst it all, Jesus maintained remarkable dignity. He did not retaliate with anger or bitterness, nor did he try to defend himself vehemently. Instead, he often responded with silence, demonstrating extraordinary self-control. This behavior teaches us that true strength lies not in reacting impulsively, but in maintaining composure and integrity even when unjustly attacked. During the way to Calvary, carrying the heavy cross, Jesus demonstrated extraordinary physical and mental endurance. Despite the pain and exhaustion, he persevered. This example reminds us that resilience often involves persisting through pain and difficulty while keeping our focus on a greater purpose. But it was on the cross that Jesus demonstrated the pinnacle of his strength and compassion. Hanging on the cross, suffering unimaginable pain, Jesus spoke words that continue to inspire and challenge humanity. One of the most notable was when he said, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." This demonstration of forgiveness, in a moment of extreme suffering, reveals an extraordinary strength of character. The forgiveness that Jesus demonstrated on the cross was not a simple word spoken lightly. It was a profound act of compassion and love, offered in a moment of extreme pain. This teaches us that true strength does not lie in seeking revenge or holding grudges, but in having the capacity to forgive even those who cause us great harm. Furthermore, even on the cross, Jesus continued to care for others. He made provision for his mother to be cared for by John, demonstrating that compassion and concern for others should not cease even in our moments of greatest need. This attitude reminds us that true strength is not self-centered, but is expressed in love and ongoing concern for others. Jesus also experienced a moment of deep spiritual anguish on the cross when he cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" This cry of despair shows us that even the strongest can have moments of doubt and desperation. However, what is remarkable is that even in this moment of apparent darkness, Jesus did not abandon his faith. He continued to address God, maintaining his spiritual connection, even when he felt abandoned. This experience of Jesus on the cross teaches us that resilience does not mean not feeling pain or doubt, but maintaining our faith and integrity even when we go through moments of spiritual darkness. It is a reminder that we can be honest with God about our struggles without losing our spiritual anchor. In the end, Jesus demonstrated his complete trust and submission to God's plan when he said, "It is finished." These words were not of defeat, but of fulfillment. Jesus knew that he had completed the mission for which he had come, demonstrating a resilience that extended to the last moment of his earthly life. The example of Jesus on the cross offers us several lessons on how we can cultivate strength and resilience in our own lives. Maintaining integrity under pressure. Jesus shows us that it is possible to uphold our values and principles even when facing injustice and adversity. The power of forgiveness. Forgiving those who harm us not only frees the other, but also liberates us from the burden of resentment and bitterness. Ongoing compassion. Caring for others, even when we are suffering, connects us with a greater purpose and gives us strength. Spiritual honesty. We can be honest with God about our struggles and doubts without losing our faith. Focus on purpose. Keeping our focus on our greater purpose can give us the strength to persevere through the most extreme difficulties. Acceptance. There is strength in accepting circumstances we cannot change, trusting in a greater plan. The resilience demonstrated by Jesus on the cross was not a brute force or a stoic indifference to pain. It was a strength deeply rooted in love, compassion, and trust in God. This form of resilience does not isolate us from pain or suffering, but allows us to face them with grace, dignity, and purpose. As we reflect on Jesus' example on the cross, we are challenged to rethink our own notions of strength and weakness. We see that true strength lies not in the absence of vulnerability, but in the ability to remain faithful to our values and purpose, even when we are most vulnerable. The cross also reminds us that sometimes resilience means accepting the suffering we cannot avoid, rather than fighting against it. Jesus did not seek to escape his fate but embraced it, transforming it into an act of love and redemption. This teaches us that at times our greatest strength lies in accepting and embracing the challenges we face, seeking to transform them into something meaningful. Finally, Jesus' example on the cross shows us that true resilience is not something we achieve on our own. Jesus constantly relied on his connection with the Father, even in the darkest moments. This reminds us that our strength comes not only from our own efforts, but from our connection with God and those around us. As we face our own challenges and struggles, we can look to Jesus' example on the cross as a source of inspiration and strength. We can learn to confront adversity with grace, to forgive when it is difficult, to maintain our integrity under pressure, and to trust in a greater purpose, even when we cannot clearly see the path ahead. Jesus' journey did not end on the cross. The resurrection, which followed 3 days later, is the culminating event that solidifies the lessons of strength and resilience that Jesus taught during his life and death. This extraordinary event not only validated everything Jesus had said and done, but also offered a new perspective on the meaning of true strength and resilience. The resurrection of Jesus is, in essence, the greatest demonstration that true strength overcomes even death. It is a powerful testimony that what seems like defeat in the eyes of the world can actually be the prelude to a greater victory. This fundamental truth has the power to completely transform our understanding of resilience and how we face life's challenges. When Jesus appeared to his disciples after the resurrection, his first words were, "Peace be with you." This greeting was not a mere formality, but a profound declaration. After enduring the extreme suffering of the cross, Jesus emerges not with bitterness or a desire for revenge, but offering peace. This teaches us that true resilience not only enables us to survive adversity, but empowers us to emerge from it with a peace and serenity that can positively impact others. The resurrection also brought a new perspective on suffering and difficulties. Jesus showed his followers the marks on his hands and his side, evidence of his past suffering. However, these scars were no longer sources of pain, but testimonies of victory. This teaches us that our own struggles and wounds can become part of our story of overcoming, not defining us by the pain we experienced, but by the strength we gained in overcoming it. In the days that followed the resurrection, Jesus took time to encourage and strengthen his followers. He appeared to Mary Magdalene when she was weeping at the tomb, walked with the disciples on the road to Emmaus, explaining the scriptures, and even prepared breakfast for the disciples by the sea. These actions show us that resilience is not just about our own strength, but also about how we use that strength to uplift and empower others. A crucial aspect of Jesus' post-resurrection appearances was how he dealt with the failure and doubt of his followers. When he encountered Peter, who had denied him 3 times, Jesus did not rebuke him but lovingly restored him, giving him a new mission. When Thomas doubted, Jesus did not reject him, but gently invited him to touch his wounds. These interactions teach us that true resilience includes the ability to offer grace and second chances to others, as well as to ourselves. The resurrection also brought a new understanding of purpose. Before ascending to heaven, Jesus gave his disciples what became known as the Great Commission, the task of spreading his message to all nations. This shows us that resilience is not just about surviving, but about living with a greater purpose. It is about using our experiences, including our struggles, to make a positive difference in the world. The lessons of resilience that we can draw from the resurrection of Jesus are profound and transformative. Hope beyond circumstances. The resurrection teaches us to maintain hope even when everything seems lost. It reminds us that what we see is not always the whole story. Peace in the midst of turmoil. Jesus offered peace after enduring great suffering, teaching us that we can find inner serenity even in challenging circumstances. Reframing difficult experiences. Just as Jesus' wounds became signs of victory, our own struggles can become part of our story of overcoming. Strength to uplift others. True resilience is not just about our own survival, but about how we use our strength to encourage and empower those around us. Grace and restoration. The way Jesus dealt with the failure of his followers teaches us the importance of forgiveness and second chances in building resilience. Living with purpose. The resurrection reminds us that resilience is not just about surviving, but about living with a greater purpose that drives us forward. As we reflect on the resurrection of Jesus and its lessons for our lives, we are challenged to see resilience not just as a personal quality, but as a transformative force that can positively impact the world around us. We are encouraged to face our own deaths, whether they are failures, losses, or seemingly insurmountable challenges, with the hope that resurrection is possible. The final message of the resurrection is that with faith and perseverance, we can not only overcome adversity, but emerge from it stronger, wiser, and better equipped to fulfill our purpose in life. It is an invitation to live with unwavering hope, profound peace, and a renewed commitment to use our experiences, both good and difficult, to make a positive difference in the world. As we conclude our journey through Jesus' teachings on strength and resilience, from the parable of the wise builder to the glory of the resurrection, we are left with a deep and transformative understanding of what it truly means to be strong and resilient. It is a call to build our lives on the firm foundation of Christ's teachings, to face our challenges with grace and determination, and to live with a purpose that transcends our immediate circumstances. May we, inspired by this supreme example, cultivate in our own lives the strength and resilience that Jesus demonstrated and taught. May we be able to face our own trials with courage, to offer forgiveness even when it's hard, to maintain our integrity under pressure, and to live with a purpose that goes beyond our immediate circumstances. The journey of Jesus, from his initial teachings to his resurrection, offers us a comprehensive model of how to live a truly resilient life. It is not a resilience based on hardness or indifference, but a resilience rooted in love, compassion, and unwavering faith. As we apply these lessons in our daily lives, we may discover a strength we didn't know we possessed. We can learn to see our challenges not as insurmountable obstacles, but as opportunities for growth and transformation. We can develop the ability to stand firm in our faith and values, even when facing opposition or difficulties. More than that, we can learn to use our own resilience to positively impact the world around us. Just as Jesus used his experiences to teach, heal, and transform lives, we too can use our struggles and victories to inspire and strengthen others. Ultimately, Jesus' message about strength and resilience is a message of hope. It is a reassurance that no matter what we face in life, we have within us, and through our connection with God, the resources necessary not just to survive, but to thrive. May we carry these powerful lessons with us, allowing them to shape our perspective, strengthen our determination, and guide us toward a life of purpose and positive impact. In doing so, we will not only become stronger and more resilient, but we will also be a beacon of hope and inspiration to all those around us.